When he moves, the whole earth quivers and quakes, and an abyss of horror opens up.
1956's Rodan, directed by Ishiro Honda.
やった。映画の時間だ。今日はビリがどんな映画を紹介してくれるかな。
Coming on the heels of Godzilla and Godzilla Raids Again, Rodan marked somewhat of an acceleration point for Toho's monster cinema, not only as its first kaiju film in color, but also by expanding what these films could be. Where Godzilla broke from American monster movies at the time by injecting real-world metaphor and post-war trauma into a genre often defined by spectacle, Rodan at first seems to pivot back toward that spectacle-driven tradition.
ラダンにはメタフォーの素質なんてなかった。
However, Honda's sentimental direction keeps it grounded. The result is a film that straddles the line between the moral weight of Godzilla and the spectacle of something like 1954's Them, walking the boundary between allegory and entertainment. Rodan began as a story by novelist Ken Kuronuma, with scriptwriters Takeo Murata and Takashi Kimura expanding the concept to include many more twists and turns. Inspired in part by the 1948 Mantell UFO incident, which stirred public fears about mysterious flying objects.
バカビリ。やつるに神秘なんかない。宇宙人は存在するんだ。俺がよく知ってる。何体もこれ知ってきたからな。
Akira Ifukube's score sets the tone right away, accompanied by the monster's now infamous shriek. According to AkiraIfukube.org, Rodan's roar was created by replicating the contrabass technique Ifukube originally used for Godzilla's roar. The sound was then layered with a human voice which was sped up. The movie opens with strange disappearances in a mining village near Mount Aso in Kyushu. What begins as a murder mystery quickly escalates into a horror story involving giant dragonfly larvae called Meganulon, before shifting gears into a full-scale disaster movie as a prehistoric pteranodon that sees the dragonfly larva as mere snacks emerges from the earth. Rodan eating these Meganulons after it hatches was an idea given to Honda by his good friend Akira Kurosawa.
ああ、昔、うざいトンボをボディスラムしたことあるな。相手する親戚だったりして。
The opening scenes of this movie, where coal miners are brutally slaughtered amid eerie sound effects, are genuinely unsettling. But once the bugs appear in full, the tension evaporates. Considering how unrealistic these costumes look, Honda might have been better served never fully showing them. Early drafts of the screenplay seem to support this, hinting that they would have only shown glimpses of the monsters. Without the grain and blur of older black and white film stock to hide the limitations, the Meganulon suits look unconvincing. It's hard to imagine anyone but kids really buying into them. That being said, Rodan's special effects are overall some of Eiji Tsuburaya's best. There are shots of Rodan that look absolutely incredible. It's giant monster movie action in its purest form. But things really get entertaining during the aerial battles, with one of Akira Ifukube's most famous pieces of music playing. Per the book, The Complete History of Toho Special Effects Movies by Tomoyuki Tanaka himself, Toho would devote 60% of the budget for this movie towards miniature sets, flying models, and full-scale monster suits. The use of color brought new life to the genre, with bright signage and painted miniatures enhancing the spectacle. The climactic destruction of Mount Aso, achieved with real molten metal, and a massive set, posed real risks to the crew, but delivered some of the most memorable visuals of early kaiju cinema. In a conversation with Vantage Point Interviews, artist Sadao Iizuka confirmed the use of real molten iron in this scene, and he would also remark how stupid and dangerous it was to do. One of the lesser known and intriguing stories in the history of Toho movies is the story of actor Hideo Unagami. Per John LeMay, it's possible that this barely known actor's ideas may have influenced this movie. The actor submitted multiple treatments to Toho's planning department, one of which was turned into 1958's The H-Man. But it was an unmade movie idea for a potential Godzilla sequel titled Bride of Godzilla that has a possible connection to Rodan. And I know there's a fascinating plot to this unmade movie which involved a giant female robot fighting Godzilla.
それ覚えてないぞ。なんで作られなかったんだ
But for now, I want to focus on how this directly relates to Rodan.
田中さん、絶対に許さない
The setting of his Godzilla bride story mostly revolves around a dangerous cavern or mine filled with giant prehistoric creatures like bugs and a giant flying dinosaur. Sound familiar? It's of LeMay's opinion that this is just too much of a coincidence, and perhaps that Tanaka rewarded Unagami by giving him a small role in Rodan. And apparently this is him. For actor Kenji Sahara, despite a small appearance in Godzilla, it would be Rodan where his close working relationship with Honda and Tsuburaya began in earnest. Appearing in Ultraman and other Toho special effects movies, he went on to eventually be known for appearing in more Godzilla movies than any other actor. As the lead in Rodan, he has a few key standout moments. I usually dislike the amnesia trope in movies and TV shows, but this film pulls it off. Especially with the flashback trigger scene and the chilling flashback itself. The scene plays like a man who descended into hell and came back. He's seen the devil, and now it's followed him into the world above. As in Godzilla, nuclear testing is mentioned as a cause, but unlike Godzilla, it isn't portrayed as a direct cause and effect. At least not as explicitly as it was for the King of Monsters, who was directly mutated by H-bomb testing. In Rodan, it's theorized that atomic bomb testing created openings to dormant underground areas. Though Rodan's sheer size implies some sort of nuclear mutation, but I don't believe it's ever explicitly said. More so, this film explores themes of environmental disruption, mining and industrialization, and a quick global warming reference serve as the catalyst for the discovery of these ancient creatures. It's a descent into the underworld with grave repercussions, reflecting the real-world dangers of mining for coal. Rodan isn't just some radioactive monster like its kaiju predecessors, but a living predator that preys on livestock and even humans. And in many ways, it's even more dangerous and destructive than Godzilla. Its supersonic speed is its defining trait, devastating cities just by flying over them. Rodan can even outpace and outmaneuver Japan's flashy jet-powered military craft. Director Honda emphasized the terrifying velocity, showing how something that large moving that fast could be a global threat, not just a local one. Also, if you've never watched this film, you'd probably be surprised to know that there are 2 Rodans in this movie. Despite Rodan not appearing at first, the film moves at a pretty brisk pace overall, only slowing down on repeat viewings when Akihiko Hirata, playing a scientist, delivers extended exposition. While there are no coal mines near the real Mount Aso, the team would spend time filming at the volcano. However, according to Steve Ryfle's biography of Ishiro Honda, the mining town scenes were mostly filmed in Shikamachi, a small town in Nagasaki once sustained by coal mining. The country setting lends the first half of the film a grounded, almost folkloric quality, as villagers grapple with strange and unexplained events before the larger world takes notice. Honda lingers on the victims' bodies and lets us hear crying babies and mourning women, heightening the film's unsettling realism. It's a hallmark of Honda's approach. He often urged his cast and crew to treat the story's fantastical elements with sobriety, grounding the spectacle in emotional and human truth. Honda would say, "My intention was to give Rodan a sense of authenticity and credibility, and not to make it a mere fairy tale. I wanted to create something that has ample scientific factual background and support." As some of you know, I recently made a video on the history of Shin Godzilla.
3時間だせえな
And something I noticed is that Hideaki Anno's vision in that movie was similar to Honda in that they both wanted to employ a documentary-style realism to ground a surreal premise. Though I'd argue in terms of overall style they are quite different. Honda's realism comes through in his calm, observational camera work and focus on collective human emotion. He wants the audience to take the monster seriously as a tragic consequence of humanity's actions. Anno, on the other hand, uses documentary elements more aggressively in Shin Godzilla, through frantic editing, data overlays, and a bureaucratic lens. Whereas Anno emphasizes the anxiety and chaos of disaster, Honda offers a more human, sentimental touch. We see this clearly at the end of Rodan, when one of the creatures dies an agonizing death in the lava. It can be interpreted or seen as the other Rodan choosing to die alongside its fellow Pteranodon, perhaps a reflection of love, choosing death over a life spent alone. This act mirrors the human couple in the film who risk their lives by refusing to evacuate, choosing instead to be together during this crisis. While the ending was always intended to show the monsters dying at Mount Aso, the specific way in which it unfolded was the result of an on-set accident. A support wire snapped, causing one of the Rodan puppets to fall unexpectedly. Honda later credited the emotional impact of the scene to the added sound effects of Rodan's cries. The two Rodans were brought to life using both puppets and monster suits, worn by Haro Nakajima and Katsumi Tezuka, both of whom had previously played Godzilla, with Tezuka also portraying Anguirus in Godzilla Raids Again. The Meganulon were portrayed by Nakajima, Tezuka, Shoichi Hirose, and Tokio Okawa. In what would be one of many painful accidents during his career, Nakajima would find himself suspended 10 meters in the air in the Rodan suit when the wires malfunctioned. He would fall into shallow water, but later recalled in a conversation with Vantage Point Interviews that the water and the wings of the Rodan suit helped soften the impact. For Western audiences, Rodan would be re-edited and Americanized, much like 1956's Godzilla King of the Monsters. As you can see from the Japanese poster and how the monster's name is pronounced in the original movie, its actual name is Rodan, a shortened form of Pteranodon. For its international release, it was changed to Rodan, though there are different sources that give multiple reasons as to why this is. Some say it was partly to avoid confusion with radon gas, a real radioactive element, and possibly due to legal concerns, as radon was already used in the names of commercial products. Some say that Toho and its distributors likely wanted to avoid potential trademark issues while also giving the monster a name that sounded stronger and more marketable in English. Regardless, Rodan was a big hit internationally, and it helped further establish the Toho monster universe abroad, which now had Godzilla, Anguirus, and Rodan. And as we'd see, there'd be a lot more to come. I talked about this before, but I first discovered Godzilla as a kid in the mid-90s through watching Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, where Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra team up to battle the massive creature.
3つ頭の腐にお灸をするのは、これが最終だったんだよな。
Well, one day, either on TV or one of my old Godzilla VHS tapes, a promo for a movie called Rodan flashed across the screen. Something I remember was my dad hyping it up, saying something like, "Wow, look at that, Rodan, oh man, look at Rodan." It wasn't until later that I realized he didn't give two shits about Rodan, or giant monsters for that matter. He was just doing that classic adult thing we do when we pretend to care so your kid gets excited. And let me tell you, it worked. I watched Rodan, and boy, where was Rodan? Why were giant bugs killing people? As a confused and impatient child, after a few minutes, I simply turned the movie off.
Baka biddy.
I may not have had the patience to watch this movie as a child, but as an adult, I see Rodan as a fast-paced creative entry in Toho's monster canon. It's a horror film, a sci-fi thriller, and a disaster movie rolled into one.
それは同感だけど、俺の映画の方が上だな。
Per an interview taken from the book Godzilla and My Movie Life, Honda himself would say this is the movie that he felt put him on his path. The giant monster of the sky, with its awesome special effects and tragic finale, showed that Honda and Tsuburaya were still a monster cinema dream team. And we were once again reminded that even creatures of vast destruction can move us.
悪くないとこだけど、カメラがちょっと微妙なところもあるね。ああ、そうだ。ビリは新しいカメラが必要なんだよな。え、誰？